The most carbon-intensive extraction process for oil is in the oil sands region of Canada. What's ironic is that the producers in the oil sands region may be the first producers to make their whole operation net zero. Imagine if the whole oil supply chain could have a net zero impact on climate change. I'm Roland Plett, and in this video, I'll describe how that could happen, even for oil sands oil. I expect the notion of net zero oil brings out its share of skeptics, but stick with me for a bit, and I'll break it down step by step. The first step is net zero oil extraction, and that is what the Oilsands Pathways Alliance is proposing. Here's the plan. First, some context for the oil sands region of Canada. It produces around 3 million barrels per day of oil, or about 3 to 4% of oil production globally. This region generates approximately 70 megatons of greenhouse gases per year. That's about double the average amount for North American oil production. To address this, 6 companies in the oil sands region came together to form the Oilsands Pathways Alliance. Between these 6 companies, they make up 95% of the production in the area. Their clear goal is to achieve net zero energy production by the year 2050. This won't be done alone by the consortium. They'll need participation from the government and the indigenous communities in the area. And it doesn't just involve carbon capture. The other technologies include clean hydrogen and other clean ways of operating. But carbon capture, utilization, and storage is at the heart of this net zero initiative. The project involves this. There's 3 phases that will culminate in 40 megatons per year of carbon sequestration. They will gather the CO2 from approximately 20, even more facilities in the oil sands region. Then they're constructing a pipeline from the oil sands region all the way down to the Cold Lake region. In the Cold Lake region, the geological formations are ideal for storing greenhouse gases for indefinite periods of time. The Oilsands Pathways Alliance believes that with this plan, they will achieve net zero oil production in the oil sands region by the year 2050. It could happen. Net zero oil production by the year 2050. But that's only step 1. Let's look at the other 2 steps. The second step in the oil life cycle after extraction is further processing in refineries. This is not currently in the scope of the Oilsands Pathways Alliance since refineries are operated and owned by other companies. But it is necessary to reach net zero in the refineries to reach the goal of net zero life cycle for oil. So how do we do this? Most of the processes in refining are actually very similar to the processes that the Oilsands Pathways Alliance is tackling in the extraction process. So it is feasible that these same capture processes in the refineries could also happen. But here's the interesting difference. In the refinery scenario, so far we haven't seen refineries band together in this kind of alliance that we saw with the oil sands. But there's a whole ecosystem that's developing around this other part of the oil life cycle process. And that is a whole marketplace of carbon. So in the refineries, for example, the capture process would pull the carbon out of all of the processes that require greenhouse gas emissions. All of those greenhouse gases would be captured and put into a pipeline to be fed into a whole carbon ecosystem. They might be stored by a broker somewhere, and from there they would be passed on to sequestration sites and sequestration companies that make it their business to do that. Now, this is a whole ecosystem, and so no one company so far has identified the whole ecosystem as something that they want to tackle in themselves, and certainly not individual refineries. And so these refineries would more than likely pay a specific sum similar to the credits they would receive by going through this sequestration process. So they would pay the whole carbon ecosystem to dispose or to store this carbon underground. This is a little bit different than the pathways piece that we talked about in the first step, but it is how the second step achieves net zero. The third step in the oil life cycle is perhaps the hardest. Mostly it is in our hands, the consumer. Will we pay a premium for cleaner products from factories, refineries, and processing plants that leverage these carbon capture processes? For products that we can't provide a net zero oil supply chain for, will we choose other ways of doing things? For example, will we drive EV cars or some other net zero vehicle instead of combustion engines that can't be net zero? This is going to be necessary if we're going to complete the whole oil life cycle to be net zero. So we would see net zero for the processes that can capture their emissions and store them. And we would have to alter our buying processes and our consumption in the areas where we can't reach net zero. A couple of closing thoughts. It seems plausible that carbon can be captured at every step along the life cycle of oil. What we don't really know is what the economic impact of that will be. Will this increased cost push us towards processes that completely avoid hydrocarbons? That's really the question. This and many other questions create a significant uncertainty about the future of oil and gas. Uncertainty demands agility. Agility to pivot operations quickly. At Cisco, we believe that the foundation of agility is digitization. To learn more about this, connect with your Cisco account team or ping me directly. If this was useful, poke the like button and subscribe. And now, if you want to continue exploring, just click on the next video. Take care.